it's easy to get strong. Post-training thought here. I hear coaches say this quite often. I've heard many very high-level coaches. That's interesting. High-level coaches say it's really easy to get strong. Well, let's take a step back for a second. You're working with the genetic elite, aren't you? Yeah, you're an NFL coach. You're working with the elite of the elite in terms of, their response to training. So, of course, it's easy to get them stronger. How about for the rest of us? No. No, it's not easy to get strong. In fact, it's really fucking hard to get strong. I know I swore in the first minute, so YouTube is going to push this down. I don't really care. The thing that I will agree with, and this is, not really all that shocking, it's very simple to get strong. Like, it's not complex. Anyone that tries to sell you something complex is trying to sell you something. It is not complex to get strong. And then let's just pick something as simple as the squat. How do you get stronger at squatting? Well, you squat. And you do heavy sets of 3, heavy sets of 5, you do heavy sets of 8 maybe. To build up, you gotta have a little bit of size there. Hypertrophy is not a bad thing, it's not a bad word. But then, most of your training is going to be in that 80 to 85% range, doing heavy sets of 3 to 5. This is simple. That is not easy. Take 85% of your 1 rep max, put that on a bar and squat it for 5 reps. That's simple. Doesn't mean it's easy. How do you squat 1,000 pounds? You put 1,000 pounds on the bar, put it on your back, squat down, and stand back up. It's really simple. It's certainly not easy. And the other thing is that we run into this issue of, the law of accommodation and diminishing returns. That eventually, at some point in time, 5x5 doesn't work anymore. Okay? At some point in time, 3x3 doesn't work anymore. Even a great program like Wendler 531, if you run it long enough, at some point you're going to plateau and you're going to need to use some other stimulus to kind of, I don't like this word, but, shock your body, right? You have to introduce a novel stimulus, something you haven't done before if you want to push further adaptation. If you do sets of 5 with 85% all the time, you get really good at sets of 5 with 85%. This is one of those reasons why I think it's important to keep heavy singles in year round. I think you should always be doing heavy singles. That doesn't mean you have to do heavy singles every day, but you should have them somewhere in your program where at least, on a regular basis, you're taking a heavy single to really just drive that neurological adaptation that needs to be there for maximal strength. Now, mind you, this is the thing about it. This is always going to be simple. I don't care what program you pick. If you choose Wendler 531, which is a fantastic program, you choose Cube Method, another good program. 10/20 Life. I don't care what it is. Conjugate, really, even the whole conjugate system, it's actually simple. Like, it's not super complex. It's not nearly as complex as people make it out to be. Johnny Candido's program is fantastic. He has that 6-week program. That's fantastic. Any of the Travis Mash programs that I've read are actually very good programs. I like a lot of them. Greg Everett has a ton of programs. They're all relatively simple if you look at them. Like, that's the thing that you'll find in common about any good strength program, is that they stick to pretty basic movements, and those basic movements are done in a rep range that's typically 3 to 5 for strength work, sometimes as high as 8s. Occasionally you might see things like, the 10s, if you're doing Wendler's Big But Boring, or whatever, Boring But Big, or however order that goes, BBB. There are certainly times where you're going to push those rep ranges up, but in general, you look across the board, and the majority of programs are very similar in some way, shape, or form, that they have a lot of heavy work in that 80% range, and you're doing, sets of 5 reps or less, okay? How it's structured changes, but it's very simple when you think about it. It's not like this is like mathematically difficult. Like you didn't need to get a PhD in mathematics in order to figure out these programs. But it's not easy, and it's not easy to know which change you need. You know, it's like trying to figure out which assistance exercise is going to increase your squat. Sometimes that's really hard to figure out. I mean, I've tried all kinds of stuff. I was like, you know, I don't do leg extensions. I think I'm going to start doing leg extensions. And I started doing leg extensions, and it did absolutely nothing for my front squat. I guess it wasn't a quad problem, okay? So making my quads stronger didn't improve my front squat, even though I, you know, pushed the leg extension really hard. So why didn't that improve things? What was the limiting factor in my front squat, right? I had to think this through. And I realized eventually at some point that it was actually just the fact that my core strength wasn't sufficient enough. My legs were plenty strong, but, you know, I was losing position, which then damages your ability to, or impedes or impairs, or whatever word you want to use, your ability to produce force. And if you could lock your pelvis into place, like truly lock it into place so it didn't move at all and your spine was completely rigid, you know, a squat would be more like a leg press. You can leg press a ton of weight. So, you know, what's the limiting factor in the squat? Well, it's your ability to, you know, stabilize the core so that you're able to maximally apply the force that you're capable of producing with your legs. So, again, back to the point here. Is it simple? Yes. Easy? Hell no. You know, this is just like people who say that they're afraid of getting bulky, or I'm afraid of getting big. Trust me, you aren't going to get big by accident. It doesn't happen by accident, except for like the rare genetic outlier who just packs on muscle because they looked at a barbell. Okay, Ronnie Coleman probably builds, you know, more quad muscle when he just sits down to the toilet and stands back up than the rest of us could even get out of a barbell. So some people are truly hyper responders. I mean, if he goes for a walk, his calves get bigger, right? But for the rest of us, for us mortals, for us normal people, you don't get big by accident. Like, you have to eat a lot of food and lift very heavy consistently for a very long time. And even then, you might not get that big. So, you know, that's why these guys that step on stage at 300 pounds are using other things to get themselves there, because you don't naturally get to 300 pounds. No one accidentally gets to weigh 290 pounds at 6% body fat on stage. That doesn't happen. That's not like you don't get there just by, I eat normal and I lift normal. No, that doesn't happen. And so in order for you to get it big, it's simple. It's like Justin Harris has said it a million times. The guy who can eat the most, you know, meat and rice over and over and over again for 10 years straight while lifting consistently, you know, is going to get bigger. That's simple. That is not easy. Well, the same thing is true of getting strong. It may be simple. Look at Ed Cohn's programming. You know, he just did these, you know, 5x5 things where he just kept doing like wave after wave after wave. It's simple. This does not require, you know, a PhD in mathematics to figure out the formula. That is definitely not easy, right? Gosh, I wish I could remember his name. I think his last name is Ricks. He's like this unbelievably strong guy who's like, I don't know, he's like in his 60s or so, or something like that. I heard something from him once, and I can't remember what the exact like program was, but it was like something like 5 weeks of fives, like 3 weeks of threes, and 1 week of singles, and then you just repeat that. It reminds me of like Richard Hawthorne. I think Richard Hawthorne had some system where it was like 2 weeks of 10s, 2 weeks of 8s, 2 weeks of 6s, like 2 weeks of 4s, 2 weeks of 3s, and then like a week of doubles and then a week of singles, and then you just repeat that. This is not complex. It's simple, but it's hard. It's really, really hard. So if you guys happen to know the secret that these coaches apparently know, where getting strong is easy, please let me know. I would love to know. I would love to know the secret to getting strong easily. But as far as I can tell, and I've been doing this for a very long time now, it's simple, but it's really hard. And you have to be like pushing yourself. You don't just come in and put 50% on the bar and do 3 sets of 5 and call it a day. That doesn't happen. You have to put something really heavy on the bar that like you struggle with for 5 reps. You have to really push hard. You have to dig deep. You know, this is like I tell people all the time about running the 400 meters. You run as hard as you possibly can for 300 meters, and then the last 100 meters, it's just whoever can suffer the most. Like, that's it. I ran the 400 a handful of times. This is why I ran the 200 as my actual event. And the suffering that occurs in that last 100 meters, if you truly run it hard, I don't care. If you're fast, you just end up suffering sooner. You know, like if you get to the 300 meter mark in, you know, I don't know, 32 seconds, you just suffer sooner than the guy who got there in 45 seconds. But if you're running as hard as you possibly can, that last 100 meters is always going to be unpleasant. It's just like the 800 meters. The 800 meters is an unpleasant race. I think someone's called it the devil's run. It's just an unpleasant distance. Like, you're going to suffer. It's short enough that it's, you can do it fast, but it's long enough that it's not truly a sprint. This is why I liked the 100. I was not good at the 100. I accelerate too slow. But the 100 is over before you're terribly uncomfortable. The 200 is also similarly short enough that pretty much you could hold your breath. Like, you could genuinely hold your breath and just run the 200. My all-time best, it was a 22:33. I did that once. Don't make fun of me. Usain Bolt only ran his best once. But the point here being, okay, you could hold your breath for 22 seconds. Hell, if it took you 30 seconds, you could hold your breath for 30 seconds. But you can't do that for running, say, 800 meters. Maybe there's someone out there who can hold their breath that long. I don't know. But I feel like it would be very unpleasant to try to hold your breath and run at the same time for that long. Point being, okay, it's simple. It does not mean that it's easy. So running any distance that's short and hard is hard. Shocker. Lifting heavy weights is hard. Nothing easy about it. No matter how simple you make it, there's nothing easy about it.